Okay, so we're going to start on section 45. Share screens. Wherever that was. Okay. Okay, here we go. So we are on 45. In 45, we learn that again, we're learning about the laws of the third party. So the third party person, he's that guy who's entrusted with some document, and he's told, deliver it to so-and-so if he does this, or don't deliver it until this happens, or hold on to it, So this is the third party guy, okay? So the third party guy, he was entrusted with a promissory note, where he, it says that Reuven owes money to Shimon, but Reuven and Shimon agreed that Levi will hold on to this document. Okay, so he was entrusted with a promissory note without a condition. And the rule is that he may not return it before the intended time. Let's fix that word. Right? So what does it mean he can't return it? He may not return it before the intended time. Because maybe the intent was not for it yet to be delivered. If you're going to give it to the wrong person too early, what's going to happen? You're going to cause a loss of money to the other party. So you can't be so quick to deliver a document which ultimately the holder of the document is ultimately the winner of the case. He is the one who gets the money of the document. So we don't want you to just quickly give it over to someone when it was not proven that you should be giving it to a person. Now, Rebbe then says, additionally, it is mentioned the third party should be very knowledgeable in the laws of a smachta. A smachta we spoke about before. That was the rule where a person can say in his mind, oh, I wanted to give this under this condition to this person, but I didn't really mean it. I was thinking about it. It's like the gamble type of, you think in your mind you want to transfer ownership, but you didn't really. So sometimes they could make a condition. It gives the third party, says, give this document to him if 30 days goes by or something, I didn't get paid. And then at the end, he wants to give it. He says, no, I didn't really mean it. It was only an asmachta. I wasn't serious. So the third party needs to be knowledgeable of the laws of the asmachta, in cases where it could be that he doesn't have to go through with it. Or sometimes his job of a third party is based on a conditional asmachta. Sometimes it's based on matters which are conditional in nature, and they were not intended to necessarily be carried out. So the third party should not just be someone who didn't learn about this concept because he could be giving it to the wrong person and transgressing a prohibition of stealing or causing a loss to someone. Then the Alter Rebbe in that Sif in 45 says that usually a kinyan in front of a prestigious court removes any doubt of a smachta. So that's generally when you have the document, it says, and a kinyan, an acquirement was made in front of a prestigious court, that shows that the intent was very serious. So if he says, give it after 30 days if I don't come, if he doesn't pay me, the borrower says, give the document completely to the lender if I don't pay him in 30 days. And I took an acquirement in front of a kinyan in front of a prestigious court. We'd say that's a good transaction, meaning the agreement is a valid agreement, and you would be allowed. The third party could indeed then give it over. So if it says a kinyan, that would be effective. All right, so now we go into 46. What did we learn in 46? We learned that a third party who was entrusted with a promissory note and he does not remember the terms or condition in which it was entrusted to him, he goes, okay, here I'm holding the document. I remember, yeah, this was the document that I've been holding on for 2 years now, and it had in there some terms. I remember that there was a condition. He told me don't give it unless but I just don't remember all the details, he says. The law is that if both parties are arguing over what the terms were, in other words, you have, let's say, the lender, and you have the borrower, And each one is saying, oh, he told me that you can give it to me if this happens. The other guy says, no, I never agreed to that. So meanwhile, whoever will end up getting the document will be the one who wins the case, right? So in the Shulchan Aruch here, in 46, it tells us that if both parties are arguing out what exactly was the terms, what was the agreement that the third party was entrusted, when he could give it over and when he can't, if it's a dispute between the borrower and the lender, the rule is that the third party has to continue to hold on to the document, and he has to wait till Eliyahu Navi comes. What is this idea of Eliyahu Navi? So Eliyahu Navi is a concept we find already in the Gemara in many places. It means to say that when we have a true doubt, what is the law? Who do we follow? What do we do in this doubtful case? So the Talmud says, let Eliyahu Hanavi solve our matters. We find this in cases when there's a big dispute, and here too as well. When the third party says, I don't know, right? The third party says, I don't, in Hebrew, the third party means the shalish. The shalish. He says, I don't know. The borrower says, I'm supposed to give the document to him. The lender tells me that I'm supposed to give it to him. I don't remember. It's been such a long time, I don't remember the details anymore. So the Alter Rebbe writes here that in such a case, you have to just continue to hold on to it until Eliyahu Navi comes. The prophet will come and solve the matter. The same would apply even if the promissory note, in other words, this document of value, monetary value, partially paid off, or the promissory note is now in the hands of the heirs. In either case, when we're in form of doubt, we don't give it over when we have that doubt. And actually, this idea is a Talmudic concept. This Talmudic concept is in Bava Metziah on 28. Let us see now this is part of a Mishnah. Let's see what it says. Okay, it says as follows. This is the middle of a Mishnah. Now, this is the first chapter of Metziah's. I'm sorry, no. Well, this is in chapter, the beginning of Bava Metziah on 28, it's chapter 1 still. It's just the next page then finishes the first parak. Anyways, it says like this. If you find a contract, you find a document, matzah shtar bein shtar osev. You were entrusted with a document amongst other documents that were given to him by their people, and you were the trustee, you were the one holding it. You don't know what is the status and nature of this document. In other words, here they put in the English here, they say, he does not remember who gave it to him or whether the debt mentioned in it has been paid. So he sees, oh, wow, this one says the Reuven owes money to Shimon. So he says, why am I holding it? Should I give it over to Shimon? He says, on one hand, maybe Reuven still owes money to Shimon, maybe Shimon had been paid him off. I don't know. So the Mishnah says that when you have a document, you don't know what's the status of it anymore. So the Mishnah tells us a very clear ruling: it shall be placed aside until Eliyahu the prophet comes and clarifies the issue for us. So here we have it. This is the source of the previous ruling that we just learned in 46, that when you're not sure on something, you have to just hold on to it. Then it says over here at the end, if there are cancellation of contracts, which is the Hebrew word of simponus, among them, you should do what's stated in the simponus. So sometimes you have details, you have rules, you have some sort of, like in this case, a simponus, where it tells us what's the status of it. So we would follow the details over there. But what comes out from here, the Mishnah is telling us, is that you can't be so quick to deliver a legal document to someone out of doubt. Interestingly, in the same Mishnah over there on 28, it says, like, let's say you find a Maisa Beistin, which is a legal status of somebody, it says like so-and-so is single, so-and-so is allowed to get married, okay, whatever it may be. There's some sort of status. So it says based in documents, you find them and you find it in the street. The assumption is you can just give it over to whoever's name is on it, because they must have dropped it. It happens. But when it comes to monetary legal documents, it's not necessarily the same case. Could be that it was paid up, could be that it was not paid up. We don't know. And therefore, we can't be so quick we have to let Eliyahu Navi weigh in on the matter. That's what comes out. Okay, now we go to 47. What did we learn in 47? We learned that just as a third party should not give a promissory note, which is a monetary document, saying someone owes money to someone else, when it is not absolutely clear that it must be delivered over. Okay, in other words, the rule that we were talking about, that the third party, when he's holding this document, and he has to know the laws of asmachta, he has to know the laws of when he's allowed to deliver over something, when there was a condition, when he has to follow through with that condition, when not. He's got to be a little bit of a Torah scholar to do his job correctly. So just like the third party, he's got to be careful on the rules that apply to a promissory note and the like, that when it's not absolutely clear when it can be delivered over, he cannot deliver it over. So too, a note of a gift or of a sale should not be delivered to the recipient until it is clear from the transfer this is his intention. Okay, so comes out that now what's the chiddush here? What is the novelty? Very simple. When it comes to saying Reuven owes money to Shimon, so I can understand that if I'm going to give it to Reuven, or if I'm going to give it to Shimon, and Reuven says, no, I didn't want you to give it to him, so you're going to cause Reuven a loss, because Shimon will then collect money also from Reuven, something like that. So we can understand there's a holdback, there's a concern of not quickly transferring over promissory notes of IOU notes and stuff to other people when you're a third party. However, when it comes to a gift, when it comes to, let's say, something like a sale, where it's not dependent about, how much money you owe somebody, it's not anything to do with that type of nature. In such a case, you could say, well, for sure you should believe him. What's the question? The answer is that even there, we still should be a little concerned, because sometimes maybe the giver, it says Reuven was giving his field to Shimon. Maybe he was giving it to a third party to hold on, but he wasn't ready yet to deliver it. If he gave it to the recipient's hands, so the guy requires the field. But in the case where he's just saying, I'm going to give the gift and here it is, but it's in the third party's hands and he didn't yet hand it over to the other guy, so I could say that, you know what, he's not really ready to give it over. So that's another rule that we learn out from 47. Okay. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. Otherwise, we can move on to 48. Now in 48, it talks about, it elaborates on this above mentioned rule. In other words, we just said here that when you have a document, you're not certain who, if it was, even if it was a gift or a sale document, you have to know that that was intended, that it should be given over. Maybe he just wants him to hold on to it. Okay. I'll give you an example in the world that I'm a little bit involved in, unfortunately. There was one time a case of a get, where the husband, he's not allowed to make any conditions on a get. You can't say, I'm giving it to you, but I don't really want it to count. So we can't do that, right? I'm just giving you this example because I think it'll explain better these samples that we're saying. So let's say he says, he says, okay, I want the get to be done and I want it to be 100% kosher. and write it. I want it to be signed for the sake of for myself and for this woman. Okay, so it's kosher. And then as he's about to give it over, he says, you know what? I want it to be in the hands of the person, and I want him to hold on to it right now. Why do I want to hold on? I'll let him know when I wanted to give it to her, but it was 100% kosher. So now the third party, this guy is holding it. Can he give it over to the woman? Well, it depends. If the guy, the husband, made the get and said, all right, hold on to it. I've had it made to be a kosher get. If it ends up going into her hands, yeah, she's divorced, but I want you to hold on to it at the moment. So basically he's turned that person into what we'll call a shalish. And then the question is, can he give it over without the permission of the husband? So generally speaking, we say, no, he should not give it over without his permission. It could be that if he did end up giving it over, it will still be a valid get. And that's the idea here. These documents, though, we have to see what was the intention of the third party who's holding it. Was it just to hold on to it as a safekeeping? Or was it that, yeah, you could deliver it at any given moment? So we always try to verify the facts. What happened? What was the condition? Were there any conditions? Why was it in the third party's hands and not in the hands of the recipient? Okay, so now, the general rules we've been learning until now is that the third party is not the balabayas to decide. He's not the owner to decide when it should be given over. It has to be clear to him that it was the intention of the original owner who wants it to have him transfer it over to the recipient. And only then he can give it. He can't just decide on his own, oh, I'm holding it, I might as well give it to the person. No, to make sure he's doing the right thing and not the wrong thing. So in 48, we say like this. The Alter Rebbe adds an important detail to the previous subsection. And that is that the above applies to a legal document that does not have on it a written kinyan suda. In other words, that there was a document and it didn't say that there was a kinyan suda, an acquirement through a garment or something. The kinyan wasn't made. Or well, let's say, however, that it was written on it that a kinyan suda took place. So that, what is the idea of the kinyan? The kinyan is like what we've been learning by the case of the chassan, right? You know, the chassan, he lifts up the kinyan, makes everything official. What is the idea of the kinyan? Right, the guy that's getting married lifts up the kinyan, he says, hey, let's obligate the document, it should be official, right? So when there is a kinyan sudar involved, the third party can deliver the legal document to the recipient of the document. So he says, oh, there was a kinyan sudar that took place, I can now deliver it. Why? Because the kinyan is showing that it's not based on a condition. It's not an asmachta. It's a real live gift. It's a gift which is ready to be given over. But if there was no kinyan, maybe you could say it's based on it's a stipulation, it's a contention that he eventually wants to be given, but not yet. But if the kinyan suda was there, would be a valid, he could deliver it over. And then the Alter Rebbe says, when does this above apply? When we do not know who entrusted the document to the third party. So the third party guy has this document. He's like, oh, who gave this to me? It's been a long time ago. I don't remember anymore. So then if it doesn't say kinyan, we say you don't give it over. If we ever knew, and if it does say you could give it over, right? Now, if we, however, we know who the third party is, not so much who the third party, I mean to say, we know who the giver was, who was the owner of the document. I think that's the correct thing. I might have wrote third party. So when you know who the owner or the original drafter of this document is, you cannot transfer the document without getting clarification from that person first, okay? Because if you don't get that clarification, you could be doing the wrong thing. You could be giving it to the recipient, shaloi kedin. You could be giving it to him not when it was supposed to be intended to do so. So we have to be very, very careful. The third party plays a very pivotal role here. He's he's got to be careful that he's not doing something which is wrong. All right, so this is basically a sum up. We learned 45, 46, 47, and 48, all talking about the law of the third party. When he has something, can he give it over? When does he hold it back? Is there any questions? No?
Makes sense.
Okay. It's sometimes they have, I'll give you a story that happened. Sometimes you have like a rabbi, he gives a smicha out. He gives a certificate, the smicha document, saying this person is ordained as a rabbi. And he shows them, he says, look, I'm very serious about it. I'm writing up this, I'm signing my document that I'm giving you the smicha. But I'm not giving it to you yet. I'm going to hold on to it. Gives it to another person to hold on to it. He says, when you will pass the final exam, okay, then I'm going to give you the document. And meanwhile, I know a story like this that happened. Was a guy, someone I know, and he took a course of Dayanis with me many years ago. And basically, the rabbi that was doing the testing was pretty old, and he doesn't know the students on a personal basis. He was testing us, but he doesn't know. So there was another rabbi who was arranging the testing for the Dayanis, or judicial ordination, and that rabbi would decide of these people who were in the program who were serious enough and fitting to receive this ordination. Now that rabbi made a decision that one of the students was not, for some reason he didn't think that one of the students was fitting to receive the judicial ordination. Even if he would have passed his exams, he had an issue, a certain personal issue about his conduct. It's told over that the Chassam Sofer, the great Chassam Sofer, so he was testing his students for smicha, and after one of them passed the test, you have to remember that in his times, it was the Maskilim movement, which is there was the Maskilim is where they have the Enlightenment movement. You had students who, however, they were Talmidei Chachamim, however, they were a little connected to the Reform movement, or the beginning of what we would call the Reform movement. So they were very concerned not to just quickly give out a smicha, a rabbinical ordination, especially from a rabbi like the Chassam Sofer, because it would look really bad if the Chassam Sofer gave out a smicha ordination, and then he finds out that the person he turned into a rabbi is now going to be leading a conservative of a Reform synagogue with no mechitza or something. That would be really bad. And there were, unfortunately, some who were Talmidei Chachamim, but they were almost like an apikoros to a certain degree. So at least something of that sort. So he once saw, after testing one of the students, who he felt did very well in it, the man who just passed the test walked through the doorway, and he didn't kiss the mezuzah. He didn't touch the mezuzah. Sometimes people right now, during this coronavirus, there were some rabbis who said, don't touch the mezuzahs because we don't want to touch.
Oh my gosh, this is so good. This is so good. Thank you.
Right, because they don't want to touch the mezuzah because it's sharing virus, whatever. That was a chiddush not to touch it. Otherwise, you should be. So he sees that he didn't touch the mezuzah, and he said, give me back the smicha right away. What? Give me the smicha.
Give me back the smicha. Give it back.
Yeah, why do you think? Because he said he knew.
My old roommate?
I don't know who the person was. This took place a couple hundred years ago.
He started the thing when we did the Dayanot with the Shmoker.
Whatever, no names.
This is such a good story.
Okay.
So this story took place in the 1850s. So sometimes I know that there are some rabbis. So the rabbi, this one I'm talking about from Toronto, he was willing to give the smicha out, but he agreed that it has to be decided through the local rabbi who knows the students much better. So he sent them, so what happened is like this. So the student knew that the rabbi, the local rabbi, didn't want him to get a smicha because they had a bit of an argument over some stuff. So he didn't want him to get the document. But meanwhile, this person was trying to contact the older rabbi to send it out quicker than was expected. He already signed the documents. And then I don't know what happened, but somehow at the end they didn't let him get the document because of that. No, I'm not saying whether it was right or wrong on the case, but it happens sometimes that the rabbi will be traveling. He's coming and he's going to be testing the students, and they're not going to be getting the smicha for another month. But they were in Brazil, and the rabbi is traveling from the Holy Land, from Eretz Yisrael. And it'll be a little inconvenient to have the certificate sent to Israel back from Brazil and then have it sent back again. So the rabbi's here now, so he signs the documents, but his meanwhile is being held on by the other person, by the local rabbi. So sometimes they have to be very careful about who they're appointing as a third party. And I'll give you one other example.
So there's an example that was started here at the yeshiva. 40 years ago, when the Shechita started in LA, that Rabbi David's father, Eliezer, taught the first set of Shechita, and the kid left out after getting the Shechita for Kala, Bema, Daka, Gasa, and everything, and took off the beard and took it off. And then Eliezer took to David and told him, that's the last one I'm teaching. That's outside of the family that I'm willing to certify because I don't trust the Shechita. And then what happened by yours is repeating on those two stories on the Shechita